So we're standing on the Mount of Olives. We're in the Garden of Gethsemane, and we're looking across the valley, and you can see the gates of Jerusalem, the east side of the city. And it was pointed out to us, and I hadn't considered it, that when the text says that Jesus was in the garden at night, and Judas came with a mob of soldiers with torches and swords,
Yeah.
he would have exited the east side of Jerusalem and gone down that valley and up the Mount of Olives to meet them in the garden. And it would have taken that group at least 15 minutes to do so. And from our vantage point on the Mount of Olives, from our vantage point there in the garden, we could see the gate they would have exited. We could see the valley they would have traversed. And Jesus could have seen it as well. Um, it's not like Judas snuck up on them. Oh no,
Mm.
oh, we weren't expecting him. Not only did Jesus know it was going to happen, but he and the disciples could see it happening. And I had never put that together that from that vantage point at night, you would have seen the light of the torches. You would have heard the sound of those people, this mob coming to get him, and Jesus stayed and waited for them to approach. It was pointed out to us, look, there's a wilderness back here. He could have easily run out of there. He could have escaped, and he had plenty of time to do it. But instead, he stayed exactly where he was and waited for this mob to come.
Welcome to the Valiant Forge podcast, where we help men overcome life's battles, show up better in the world, and become a valiant warrior for God. This is a place where we share practical strategies that will equip you on life's journey to help you become the man God has called you to be. Are you ready to overcome your doubt and fulfill your purpose just like Gideon? If so, let's go.
Today I'm sharing a conversation with Craig Dehut. He is the CEO and co-founder of Appian Media. Appian Media is a company that goes around the world filming in different locations to produce Bible stories for children specifically, but I've gone on YouTube and looked at some of their videos. They're visually stunning and they're great teaching tools. So, I've shared conversations with high level men, and Craig is also a high level man who, has found purpose and is really working on living out that purpose. And, we have a lot of conversations about what it takes to make the films and what the purpose is behind the films. And we also have some great conversations around men and what it takes for men to level up. So this isn't just a conversation about filmmaking. So, stay tuned. As always, I always ask my guests questions around what it takes to be a better man. And the Cave of Adullam question that I ask on every podcast, if you're new to the podcast, I have a final question that I ask every man that comes on the podcast. It's about leadership, and he has such a phenomenal answer. So I think you're going to enjoy it. I have an announcement to make, but that'll be at the end of the video. So I will see you at the end of the video. Here's my conversation with Craig Dehut. Craig, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Where are you at right now?
So my family and I, we live just west of Indianapolis, Indiana.
Oh, how often do you travel to do what you do?
Oh, not as often as I would like. Typically, somewhere between a year and a half to every 2 years, we take a trip overseas. We're working to increase that. We'd like to make a trip at least once a year, starting with this fall. But yeah, I've been blessed to travel.
Awesome. For people that don't know your media thing, can you give us a little
Sure.
description?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the co-founder and the CEO of Appian Media, and we travel over to the lands of the Bible and create documentary material to help people visualize what they're reading in the biblical text. And then all of the videos that we create, we actually make available for free online. So on our YouTube channel and on our website. And the Lord has blessed us over the last 10 years. We've been able to do this, and we've taken numerous trips to Israel and Turkey and Egypt and Jordan. And Lord willing, we're taking another trip this fall to Israel, Turkey, and Greece in a single trip. We're going to be covering the Book of Acts, or at least the first
Oh,
half of the Book of Acts.
awesome.
So yeah, what we do is just trying to get people re-engaged with biblical text, help them to see and visualize what it is that they're reading.
So I saw a couple videos where you were in Egypt. So is
Yes.
that you tell the story and then you weave in the modern version of the site as well, and then you talk
Yes,
about it?
we always try to go over there and help people understand a bit more about the history, about the geography and the culture, both the modern day culture and as best as we can give them an idea of the what the culture was like at the time. And so that series we released that last year. We call it Out of Egypt. And it was a study on the book of Exodus. So God
Hmm.
bringing his people out of Egypt through Jordan, what we call Jordan, and then
Right.
into the promised land. And yeah, just kind of helping the audience understand the gods that the Egyptian people served and the Israelite slaves, were surrounded by, and what it was like to come out of that and travel through that desolate area as God led them to Canaan.
That's awesome. So what made you decide to do it for free? And
Mm.
how has that shaped your faith journey?
Yeah, it is something that raises eyebrows, even in our industry, where they're like, you're making this incredibly professionally produced stuff and then you're giving it away. How does that work? We did choose to become a non-for-profit at the very beginning because we thought it was incredibly important to remove the barrier of cost to anyone who may want to use this content. And that was important to myself and to our co-founder from the very beginning, mostly because we could go online and we could find some resources that were available, and some of them were free, but most of the free ones were free for a reason because they just
Right.
weren't well
There.
made.
Right.
Um, and what we were struggling to find were biblical videos shot on location in those lands that were biblically accurate and historically accurate, professionally produced, and free. We could usually only find content that was one or maybe two of those things. Maybe they were really well produced, but you couldn't trust the accuracy, and they certainly weren't coming from a biblical perspective. Or maybe they were biblically accurate, but they were really boring. They just weren't
Hmm.
well produced enough to keep your attention. Or maybe they were accurate and they were well produced, but then you had to pay for them before you even knew if that was a resource that you wanted to use. And so we thought, well, surely we can do this and create something that's all three, and that's been incorporated into classrooms, Bible classrooms and homeschool
Hmm.
classrooms, home Bible studies and small groups all over the world now. Because it's the easiest sell I've ever had to do is look, these things are available. You can go online, you can watch them, stream them, download them. They're free to watch, no obligation to you. And there are just people around the world that financially support those efforts as a non-for-profit so that more and more people can enjoy it.
So have there been moments in the journey where that got to be a struggle? Like maybe we should charge a little?
From day one, from day one, 100%. I mean, to make media like this of the quality that we strive for, it is not cheap. And then you talk about traveling internationally. You're taking production crews and gear to foreign countries. It's not cheap. And so, yes, there has been every step. It's a matter of faith, trusting that if this is something that God wants done, He'll find a way. He'll make a way for us to get it done. And sometimes that means that we pay our team less. Sometimes, especially in those first few years, that's many months of unpaid work. Um, but as the years have gone on and the support has increased and more people see the benefit of a resource like this, the more people have entrusted us with their funds to make this content available. It's never easy. We're in the midst of fundraising at this very moment to finance
Hmm.
our next trip in the fall. Um, but it's putting it out there, explaining to people what we're trying to accomplish, showing them what we've been able to accomplish, and then trusting God to open or close whatever doors he intends.
Yeah, and I would imagine that in the end, God always provides, and that probably strengthens your faith. Would you agree with that?
It does. And sometimes that means that we've not been able to take trips when we would like to. Sometimes that has meant, I mean, in the year of COVID 2020, we had a trip planned to Turkey in the spring of 2020.
Hmm.
And the funds were there, but the countries closed down because the world
Right.
closed down. And we had to kind of step back and go, you know, usually I'm hesitant to speak for God, but this seems pretty clear that he does not want us to travel to Turkey right now. And we had to be okay with that. And we did what we could while locked down to continue to create some kind of beneficial content, even from here in the States. And then October came, and Turkey was actually one of the first countries to open back up.
Wow.
So even in the midst of difficult travel situations, there were a lot of extra hoops we had to jump through. We were able to take a trip in October of 2020 when very few people were flying, and and be able to create that content. So it's being patient, and it's trusting God in His timing and in His provision, and being flexible because we're trying to do something good, but we're trying to do it in a way that's God honoring. And how we do the thing is just as important as the thing that we're creating.
So I know this is sort of a family thing, right? You have more people, but you have a lot of your family involved.
It's true.
What led,
Yeah.
yeah, what led you guys to starting this?
That's a great question. So back in September of 2015, myself and a colleague of mine, his name is Stuart Peck. He works here in Indianapolis as well. And he and I were kind of bemoaning the lack of this content that we were looking for, biblically accurate, professionally produced, free content that we could use in classrooms to get, especially at the beginning, to get young people excited about the biblical text again. And we have found since the very beginning that it's more than just young people that are visual learners. We are all
Hmm.
visual learners. But that's what started, where Stuart and I in a coffee shop kind of complained about the lack of this thing until it was suggested, well,
So
maybe
were
we're the
you
ones to go out and create
Bible
it.
teachers? Were you Bible teachers or?
Yeah, so both of us have opportunity to teach on occasion, and at that moment, Stuart was teaching a high school Bible class,
Hmm.
and was just seeing this disengagement. They were coming into class being told to put away all their technology and all their media, and this is how you're going to learn. Um, and the book is powerful. I mean no disrespect to the biblical text. That's how God chose to reveal His word. It's worked well for millennia, and it's going to continue to work well. But we also benefit from being able to see what
Correct,
it
yeah.
is that we're reading. And kids learn that way in schools. They learn that way at home. They're scrolling on their phones, they're listening to podcasts, or they're watching video. And we thought, why can't we combine those two things when it comes to learning the Bible? And I've had opportunity throughout the years to teach both young people and adults, and to preach on occasion. And what the audience does when they can see what it is that you're talking about, there are light bulbs that you see going off
Yeah.
that we all benefit from. And so that was our intent from the very beginning. And that's our goal really for the next 10 years and beyond, is we want to create content that covers the whole Bible from Genesis to Revelation. Whatever you might be studying, we want to create visuals so that you can see what it is that you're reading in a more in-depth way.
So from that conversation, were you already kind of into camera work? And because you do great camera work, by the way.
Yeah. Well, thank you. We've got a good team. I'm not going to take credit for all of the camera work. Usually we've got two or three others who are helping to shoot as well. But yes, he and I were both working in the industry at the time. I graduated from film school back in 2008. I was mostly concerned with directing and writing like narrative film, short films and feature films. Documentary really wasn't exactly where I was leaning towards. And then Stewart had experience with reality TV. He was at the time working on an HGTV show here in Indiana. And so we both understood how to tell stories with video. And we surrounded ourselves with people who are also talented at their craft, and and to be able to finally combine two things that I love, visual storytelling through media, through film, and my love for scripture and the Lord, and find a way that we can actually put those two things together. Um, I mean, it was an answer to prayer, certainly.
Hmm. So how do you say it again? Appian?
Appian, yep,
As
Appian
Appian
Media.
Media grew, how did you guard your heart from drifting towards comparison or ego?
Oh, that's a great question. That's an ongoing process. Um, it is easy. It is easy to look at the success that we've been granted, or to get used to funding coming in, or get used to some of our videos have been viewed millions of times, and to go, that's something that I've accomplished, or
Yeah.
that's something, look at what we've done. Um, I would say that God has also allowed us to experience enough setbacks and failures and difficulties to humble us and go, you're not in complete control of this
Hmm.
thing. It's not always smooth sailing. The funding doesn't just happen. That still takes work and effort and prayer and trust, and reminding ourselves at all times that we never want to be the thing, or even the creators of the thing, that distracts from Jesus and from
Right.
the Word. And so we want the video to be professionally produced, but I don't want you distracted by it. I don't want people to come away from the videos and go, "Oh, wow, the camera work was amazing and those drone shots were exceptional," but they
They
missed
missed the
the point of the
story. Right.
message, right?
Yeah.
As any good teacher or preacher will tell you, illustrations are helpful. Jesus used parables and illustrations. But if all they really remember are the illustrations or the teaching tools, and they never really held on to what the purpose and the message was, that's not an effective teacher. And so that's something that we approach very intentionally and carefully. Is let's not get lost in the technical. Let's not shoot something or create a scene just because it's fun or it would look good on camera. Does it serve the story? Will
Right.
it help them learn? Is it a scene that can be used in teaching? And I wish I could say we've been perfect on that in all fronts, but that really has been our North Star as of late is, can I take any moment of anything that we've produced and visualize that in a classroom, or visualize that in a Bible study of some kind, and say that's useful or helpful there. And if not, that's what the History Channel's for. That's what they're
Yes.
producing.
Yeah.
Um, ours needs to be done with that intent.
I love that answer. The part of the reason I asked that question, because not just, media things, even podcasters. I struggle with it once in a while. I'll be like, why is this guy doing so much better than me? And I say
Yeah,
me when this isn't about me. I'm doing this
yeah,
podcast. I'm interviewing men like you who have a heart after God to bring glory to God. But, a lot of us men, eh, specifically men, struggle with that ego part of it. And I love that answer. Yeah, it's
yeah,
whatever you're doing, it's going to be hard, but is what I'm doing glorifying God? That's such a great frame for that.
yeah. Sometimes we've got to step out of the way because people need to see Jesus, right? The text says that they may see the good works that you're doing and glorify your Father in heaven. Not glorify you. They shouldn't get
Right.
distracted with you, but they should look at what you've done and go, "Wow, what a God he must serve." What kind of God would prompt someone to live that way or do that thing? That's a special kind of God. I want to know him. And so it's a tricky thing, because media is visual, and we are making use of the internet, which gives us access to audiences all over the world. And it's easy to crave and even chase after that acknowledgement from people that my work was well done. you know.
Yeah.
Um, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but it's not the thing I'm striving for. It's not the thing
Right.
that's guiding us. Um, so yeah, great question, and it's something we all need to consider, no matter what kind of line of work we're in.
Absolutely. This kind of goes along the same lines, but in filmmaking, I'm sure you film a lot of footage and you decide what goes into the footage. So how do you make decisions when the metrics will say, if I put this in the footage, it's going to get a lot of views,
Mm,
but conviction says no, you don't want to put that in. How do you deal
yeah,
with that?
that is something um, we work through both in the pre-production as we're writing, the plan for every documentary. That's happening while we're shooting. And that certainly happens quite a bit in post-production when we're editing. Now that we've shot, we don't include every minute of every interview or every, scene that we've shot. What stays, what goes, and why. And it really does come back to that metric that we used is can I teach with this? Is it true? Is it accurate? Is it well presented? And can I teach with it? And I give credit to our incredible story team. And typically that's handled through Jeremy Dehut is one of our hosts. He's actually my oldest brother. And you'll see him in a lot of the videos that we've done. But then Justin Dobbs is he's my brother-in-law as well. But he does quite a bit of our writing, not just for the scenes, but the workbooks that we make available that accompany these videos that go even deeper into the biblical text and offer more photos and maps and things. He does a lot of that writing. And so it's deciding what's going to serve this scene. What's the point of this scene? What's the theme of this series? What is this passage trying to communicate? So we did a series on the story of the Exodus. What did God emphasize in the book of Exodus? And what did
Right.
he not spend a lot of time dealing with? Um, here's a hot take. He did not describe to us in great detail where Mount Sinai was.
Right.
He really didn't. He could have. He very easily could have. And so there's quite a bit of debate, especially online, as to, well, was it this mountain or was it this mountain or was it? But what did he do? He spent tons of time describing what God communicated to Moses on the mountain. And so that was our approach when we did that documentary is we picked one of those potential locations. We
Mm.
didn't necessarily plant a flag and say it's got to be this one, it can't be any of the others. We mentioned that there are many others suggested, but we spent 15 to 18 minutes of our two hosts at the top of this mountain talking about what God did and what he communicated to Moses. That's our approach is we'll emphasize what the text emphasizes. And we will get into a little bit of history and geography speculation, but very rarely will we spend much time on it because God didn't. And that's not the purpose of our particular studies.
Wow. Um, you mentioned workbooks. I know
Correct.
I know you teach younger people, but are these workbooks geared towards anybody or just for a younger generation?
That's a great question. We've got a series of videos and workbooks that we call our lessons from the land. And these are specifically designed for grade school kids. Ideally, they can read, but this will take them up even into like fifth or sixth grade.
Oh,
And then we have workbooks that are designed for, I would say, like junior high and up, all the way up to adults. And those will cover the same portion of biblical material, but written for more their age group. And then there are videos that are associated, specific videos made for a younger age group, and then what we call our main series, videos that are meant for junior high and up.
hmm. I know you have a YouTube channel, but do you like have you can get these videos like specifically for a classroom?
Correct. Yeah, so you can go on our YouTube channel and watch all of the content that we've created, but you can also visit our website, appianmedia.org. And not only can you stream the videos from that website, but you can download them. You
Oh,
can
wow.
download them and use a portion of that in a Bible class. You can add that to a keynote presentation, perhaps. because that's been our intent all along is is they can have access to them and use them in whatever they're teaching.
So, what's one filming moment that completely shifted your view of a particular Bible story?
Hmm. Only one. It
Or,
happens
you
numerous
can go
times on
into a
each trip.
couple.
Yeah. There's one that typically comes to mind is we were in Jerusalem and we were doing a series that we call Following the Messiah, where we obviously follow the life of Jesus from his birth to his death, burial, and resurrection. And so we're standing on the Mount of Olives. We're in the Garden of Gethsemane, and we're looking across the valley, and you can see the gates of Jerusalem, the east side of the city. And it was pointed out to us, and I hadn't considered it, that when the text says that Jesus was in the garden at night and Judas came with a mob of soldiers with torches and swords,
Yeah.
he would have exited the east side of Jerusalem and gone down that valley and up the Mount of Olives to meet them in the garden. And it would have taken that group at least 15 minutes to do so. And from our vantage point on the Mount of Olives, from our vantage point there in the garden, we could see the gate they would have exited. We could see the valley they would have traversed. And Jesus could have seen it as well. It's not like Judas snuck up on them. Oh no, oh, we weren't expecting him. Not only did Jesus know it was going to happen, but he and the disciples could see it happening. And I had never put that together that from that vantage point at night, you would have seen the light of the torches. You would have heard the sound of those people, this mob coming to get him, and Jesus stayed and waited for them to approach. It was pointed out to us, look, there's a wilderness back here. He could have easily run out of there. He could have escaped, and he had plenty of time to do it. But instead, he stayed exactly where he was and waited for this mob to come. It's one of those examples that I frequently mention because being there in the spot and understanding the geography that isn't explained in the text, but for those who understood what Jerusalem looked like and where the Mount of Olives was and that the garden was on the, it adds a layer of depth to the story and a layer of depth to Jesus's decision to stay and do the Father's will. But that's happened numerous times. When we climbed up, whether it was this mountain or another mountain, but we climbed up the traditional Mount Sinai there at Jabal Musa in the Sinai Peninsula. It's not an easy trek. You're going you're going up this thing, and you can see in the video that we made, we were kind of trying to beat the sunset because we had gotten delayed. It's not an easy hike. And the text says that Moses, an 80-year-old man, went up and down that mountain several times in the
Mm.
course of his time there. And it just, you don't appreciate when you read the text. That was a task. That
Yeah.
was difficult. And being able to see it and walk it and sweat it out to go, wow, I appreciate the faith of Moses. In fact, you read in the text, he goes up the mountain, and once he gets up there, God says, go back down and warn the people not to come up. And Moses says, I have warned the people. They're afraid to even approach. And God says, go down. So he has to go all the way back down to give them the warning again, because it was that serious, not to approach God in that way. And then he comes
Right.
back up. Um,
Wow.
and then our task is to, how do you then, once we understand it being there, how do you then bottle that up, capture that in a compelling way in video so that audiences can get those same kind of light bulb moments?
Yeah. So, when you see a young person watching your content, what do you pray they walk away with?
Mm. I want young and old to watch our content and appreciate the word. I want them to appreciate the fact that God chose to reveal himself in such a beautiful and deep way. And I want to see those light bulbs. I love it. Usually we'll have these premieres or these screenings of our content, and I've seen it. I edit most of the videos. I've seen it dozens, hundreds of times. I'm looking at the audience and I'm watching their faces And I'm waiting for those moments where that piece of information is given. Listen, he could have walked away. He was there in the garden and he could have left. He had all the time in the world. And seeing their eyes go, oh, oh, I hope they come away with a deeper appreciation for the God that we serve and the God that chose to communicate himself through his holy word.
So before you guys started doing this, had you been to Israel?
No.
No.
The farthest out of our country I had been was Montreal, Canada,
No, I
which
see.
is barely, it feels like you're barely into another country. So, and that's what was wild was the suggestion was made, what if we did it? What would it take to get a group of us? And that first trip, I think there were 7 of us. What would it take to go over there? And I think our ignorance of the task was in our favor because it's not easy. In fact, it's fairly difficult to do. Um, but we didn't know what we didn't know, and so we thought surely we can do it. And
Right.
the more we've been able to go, the more we've been willing to push ourselves because now that we do have some experience, I have now traveled to numerous countries overseas. Um, and now, we're tackling the book of Acts, which we never would have considered even 5 years ago, because this is going to be, you look at where Paul traveled,
Right,
this is
right.
covering all of that known world. It's a big task, but we think the team's up for it.
So you'll be traveling through all of Asia.
Yes. Yeah, to the best of our abilities. Obviously there are numerous sites that are mentioned in the Book of Acts that for various reasons we can't visit.
Right.
Damascus in Syria, for example, is not a place that is recommended that we travel to at this time. But then there are also other places, even in Turkey, Lystra, Iconium, Derbe, mentioned numerous times, but currently there's no archaeological work that's been done at those sites. They know where they are, and they're a hill covered in grass.
Wow.
There's not anything to see there yet, and so that's not part of our itinerary this trip. So it's identifying all of the sites, but then narrowing it down to go, these are the ones that we can safely travel to. These are the ones where there's actually something that we could see there. And these are the ones that we can do without, being overseas for 3 months at a time. Um, our wives and our families would appreciate if we keep it a reasonable length. So this trip coming up, Lord willing, is about 18 days, 3 different countries, and that's the longest production trip we've ever taken, and it's certainly the most countries we've tried to do in a single trip.
Oh. Yeah, that was another question I was going to ask. Do your families sometimes go with you, or do they stay at home?
My family personally, my wife and my 3 kids have not been able to join me on these trips. I've got fairly young kids. My oldest is only 11. However, some of the sons, or some of the kids, even one of their daughters of some of our other team members have been able to join us, and we call them production assistants, and
Hmm.
we put them to work. And so, yeah, it's been a blessing to have Jeremy and Barry. And Dan is one of our executive producers and a photographer. We've had some of his kids join us. Um, how impactful it is that at such a young age they can experience these places with their own eyes
Yeah,
and help contribute to a work like this. And so, Lord willing, we're bringing 2 children of some of our team members on our trip this fall, and yeah, we're going to put them to work.
that's awesome. I was gonna say I'm sure because the faith of a child is, you're not the a child isn't what's the word I'm looking for? They're not they don't have the world in their
Right.
mind. They see the beauty of it all from the first point. They
Yeah.
don't have like bills and worries and cares of the world in their mind, and they just see the beauty of it. And how will that affect their faith that they can go and spread it to someone else? That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So have
We
have
think
you
that's
done a series on David at all?
We have certainly. We call it Searching for a King, and we cover the period of the end of the judges, so Samuel being the last judge, and then we cover the life of King Saul and David and Solomon. And That's one of my favorite series that we've done because early on in that pre-production, I didn't know this until we began, but there are many people in academia who question whether David was even a real person.
Hmm.
They contest that it was just more of a legendary figure, like a King Arthur kind of figure that Israel invented some point in their history. And so we took that approach of not only did our hosts go over and present material, but we interviewed archaeologists and historians and people over there to help answer that question. Can we trust the biblical text? Not only can we trust it when it talks about King David of a united kingdom of Israel, but can we trust it as a whole? Is the biblical text trustworthy? And so, yeah, we got to visit places like Shiloh, where the tabernacle was in those last days of Samuel, and speak to archaeologists about what they have found there. We visited the city of David and visited very likely the location of what was David's palace, and so we were able to talk about stories of his kingship, um, and track that whole story. We talk about whether there's evidence whether the temple really was where it's professed to be,
Wow.
and talked to Gabriel Barkay is an archaeologist who lives there in Jerusalem and incredibly well respected in that community. Been doing work like that for decades and decades, and is part of a group that they call it the Temple Mount Sifting Project, where they're able to sift dirt that was dug up on the Temple Mount, and the things that they've been able to find there that does indicate that there was an Israelite presence up there, and it's the best that they can do without a official archaeological dig there on Temple
Right,
Mount,
right.
which is currently impossible. Um, and so, yeah, it's David has always been one of my favorite characters, um, and to be able to do a study on him was something that we jumped on pretty early.
The reason I asked you that question is because I ask a question at the end of every podcast around David
Yes.
for every man. So I'm about to ask you this question. And I recently have found out I may not have been telling the story correctly because it came up to me, I think, in the Book of Chronicles. So I would the way I've always usually worded the question, and since you've done this deeper study through visuals, you could tell me if I'm correct or not. In the cave of Adullam, so it talks about it twice. I know it talks about it in Chronicles and it talks about it in Second Samuel or First Samuel. In First Samuel, David was in the cave of Adullam. This is the way I've worded the question so far.
Hmm.
In First Samuel, David was in the cave of Adullam. He was kind of hiding from Saul at that point. And the men of the kingdom were disgruntled, discouraged, and disheartened, and they came to David.
Hmm.
And it doesn't say in the Bible whether David said anything to them in that cave or not, but all of a sudden everything shifted. So what I normally ask guys, if you have modern day, you have a bunch of men in front of you who are disgruntled, disheartened, discouraged, what would you say to them? But I read the other day
Hmm.
in Chronicles another point. I don't know if it was the same point, another point in the cave of Adullam that was the moment where David said, if I could just have a drink from the well of Bethlehem, I think it is. And those three men went and killed a bunch of men just to get David a drink from the well. So I
Yeah.
was like, if that's the real story that inspires, that's so much more inspiring than just David said something to this man and what would you say to them? So
Yeah.
I know you could explain to me what the actual story is, but also in that, if you could answer that question.
No, well, yeah, I mean, you got that account correct. It does say that those, some translations say disenfranchised, those who had been mistreated, those who were not being treated well under the kingship of Saul. And that would include David. He absolutely, had been so severely mistreated by that man, even though he was one of his greatest servants.
Right.
And yeah, what David must have said to inspire those men. And I'm visualizing it. We actually visited that cave. We went inside.
Wow.
There's a whole cave system in there, and there's absolutely room enough to fit the hundreds of people that were described as being there with David. What I would say to men who, and I can see it in this generation, we have been so beaten down and so marginalized and so made to feel so inferior. I work in the media landscape. I can tell you it's been an intentional push in the writing of Hollywood for the last 50 years. And it started with make the men the butt of the jokes.
Right.
But it is now to the point where the men are just completely absent in most stories, especially the ones geared towards our kids. The mom is there and the dad's either gone
Or he's
or
a bumbling idiot.
emotionally absent, right? Or he's a complete idiot. That's the story we're being told about ourselves. And if you get told a lie like that year after year after year, men believe it now. We believe
Right.
it now. We look at ourselves and go, am I even worthwhile? Am I a blessing to my family? Because I'm being told that I'm expendable, that I'm worthless, that I'm and what I would tell these men is don't let the world tell you your worth. God has told you your worth in his word. The way that he describes husbands and fathers is what you need to believe about yourself. And the fact that he compares the relationship of Jesus to the church as the love that a husband ought to have for his wife means that he values that a great deal. And so I do talks and studies like this where to encourage this generation of men, we've believed the lie for too long. We don't need to let the world tell us who we are or what we're for or how valuable we are. God has already done all that, and He's
Amen.
told us what we're supposed to be about. And so now it's our time to get about doing it,
Amen.
being the kind of husbands and fathers that we're supposed to be, investing in them, training them. That's not the primary function of the wife. We are told to be the leaders of our home and the heads of our household. And the wife obviously plays an incredibly important, essential role in that. But she's looking to us to lead. The children should be looking to us to lead. And when we think about, honestly, there are so many stories in the Bible where we see what happens to the next generation when fathers don't.
Right.
Even in David's life, a
Yes.
man after
Yep.
God's own heart failed to pass that along to the next generation. It should then inspire us to go, I'm not going to let that happen with my kids. And to the best of my abilities, if I have opportunity to teach other children, the next generation, maybe they don't have fathers and it's not their, it's rarely the child's fault.
Right.
Maybe
Right.
things happen, the father has died or whatever. What can we do as men to be mentors, to help and encourage even other children? What good will be done in the kingdom if we can rise up a generation like that?
Amen. That's that's awesome answer. Probably one of the best that I've heard so far. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. How can people connect? You guys have social media other than YouTube?
We
I know you have
absolutely
the
do.
website.
Yeah, we've got our website. You can find us on Instagram and on Facebook. Don't look for us on TikTok. I've just never gotten into the TikTok, but you can absolutely. YouTube is probably the best way to find us and connect with us.
Okay.
But from our website, there's a contact form, and we love to hear from our viewers, giving us ideas of what to create next, or telling us what you thought about the content that we've made. That those messages come to me and to other members of the team. And we always love to hear from people. And so we would encourage people to do that. That's appianmedia.org.
Awesome. Craig, thank you very much for coming on. I look forward to connecting with you again. I will definitely be diving into some of those videos myself. So
Oh, I would
thank you
love
very
that.
much.
Thank
God
you.
bless you. I really enjoyed my conversation with Craig. I hope you did as well. Let me know in the comments below or send a text if you're listening on the audio side. Let me know what you thought of it and if you have any thoughts. And, I'm continuing to try to bring high level men that I can have great conversations with to the podcast. But I am also, I am going to be doing some teaching, but these are going to be short little quips. This is the announcement that I was going to make that I was talking about earlier. If you listened to last week's episode with Victor, you heard us talking about how we're going through a teaching called Act Like Men in our church. Well, I've decided to bring that teaching to YouTube. And since they're going to be short, I'm not going to post them on the podcast um, for reasons that I don't need to go into. But I'm going to be posting them on YouTube, and this episode will be coming out Wednesday. This coming Friday, there will be the first part in the series of Act Like Men, where I'm going to be talking about Gideon. If you want to watch or hear that video, I'm going to put a link in the description below so you can follow along on YouTube. And I'm just going to be honest with you, I'm trying to grow the audience on YouTube as well. So if you listen on the audio side and you're not following on YouTube, just click the link below and hit subscribe. Also, if you just found this podcast and you're wondering what this is about and you like these kind of conversations and these kind of talks, click the subscribe button. If you enjoyed the conversation, share with a friend, leave a review on whatever platform you're listening to it on, and I appreciate it. And I will see you in the next episode. Stay strong, stay valiant, keep forging your path, and be blessed.